Hello and welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute-a-day podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, recorded here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro, located in Sharonville, Ohio. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro. Come on in here and sit down with me. Grab yourself something hot or cold to drink. Open your Bible up. Let's study together Psalm 105. Today, verses 16 through 20. Now, we finished through verse 15, and that was the end of that section that came from 1 Chronicles 16. Now we begin new material here in verse 16 of Psalm 105, and we're going to continue this idea of the patriarchs and basically, how the Lord remembered his covenant with them, even though they were strangers in the land, and all the things that happened to them. So today and tomorrow we're going to look at Joseph's story. So we ended there with the patriarchs wandering. And he mentioned Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob there on Tuesday's passage, 6 through 10. And then 11 through 15, he mentions the covenant that God gave them. They're wandering in the land, going from one kingdom to another, but all the time God was protecting them. And now we're going to look at Joseph's story, 16 through 24, today just through verse 20. But Joseph also is going to be he's going to be, in a micro version, a stranger and wanderer in the land of Egypt, and yet God blesses him. He keeps him, and he blesses him. So if you have your Bible open there, let's turn to 16 through 20, and I'll read that for us. Moreover, he called for a famine upon the land, and brake the whole staff of bread. He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant, whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron, until the time that his word came. The word of the Lord tried him. The king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free. Now, I know you want more because I do. I want to go on and read 21 through 24. What happened to Joseph? How come he was set free? What took place? Well, we know the story, don't we? And we can go back and begin reading in Genesis chapter 37 and read about Joseph's story. And in 37, we read about his early life, the dreams that he had, how his brothers hated him, how they eventually sold him into slavery. And then chapter 38 is about Judah's story. And then chapter 39, we find Joseph in Egypt and all that happened to him in Egypt and how he eventually ended up in the prison. And while he was in the prison, he was blessed of God and all that happened with him in there. And then Jacob finally comes back into Joseph's story when he comes down into Egypt, and we find the end of Jacob there in Egypt. And then we conclude Joseph's story in Egypt and kind of leave them there until Exodus. And then in the book of Exodus, we have their deliverance. So there's, that whole period, we have it recorded for us in detail in the scriptures, 37 through 50 in the book of Genesis. So notice that he called. The he's here are really important, and I did not mark them in my text, and I need to. He called for a famine. He brake the whole staff of bread. He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant. So who's the he here? Well, that's the Lord, remember? He suffered no man to do them wrong, yet he reproved kings for their sake. That's in verse 14. And then here we have again, he called, he brake, he sent a man. So the Lord is doing all of this. He's the one that brings the famine. He's the one that breaks the staff of bread. And yet he's also the one that sends a man into Egypt before Jacob's family, even Joseph, his son, who was sold for a slave or for a servant. And then you have there in verse 18, his feet were in fetters. He was laid in irons until the time that his word came. The word of the Lord tried him. So he knew what was going to happen because he had dreamed the dream. He was going to be exalted. But that didn't happen while he was in the prison, did it? No, it happened when Pharaoh called for him, and that's what's next there in verse 20. The king sent and loosed him. The ruler of the people let him go free because the king had a dream, and he had heard that Joseph could interpret dreams. And so Joseph is let go free. Join me tomorrow, and we'll look at verses 21 through 24 here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. For more fresh and delicious Bible studies, podcasts, books, and more, check out the Bible Bistro online and on YouTube. Join me again next time for Daily Dose Radio.